Hey, thanks for clicking on the video. So we're going to be going over the top 10 things I've learned in doing interviews. Now, I'm no expert. I'm still trying to get a job myself, but I've still gone through these experiences and feel like I've come out and gained something from each one of them. So I would love to provide that here so maybe it could help one of you guys. And I would love if you guys comment and describe things that have helped you or you've learned through your experiences so we can all kind of gain something from this. I'm just gonna go straight into number one, which is kind of two things. I'm gonna cheat on a couple of these. I definitely have like two things on some of these. So this is just like the best advice I've gotten from previous managers or even actually people that interviewed me. So the first one is remember when you go into an interview, a good interviewer's job is to figure out where your wall is with information. So if you're saying that you know a language or you know operating systems, if you know something, a good interviewer's job is to ask you questions until you don't know something. By hearing that from my manager, it helped you get to a point in an interview where you feel like you've messed up, and I will use that to get through those moments. I will remember the main thing they're doing here is to find this. So by you not knowing something, that is not a fault on you. That was just their job and the goal that what they're trying to achieve, right? And by going into it as well, you always feel like you're doing something. You'll do a coding question or you'll be answering something, and then you'll notice they'll ask something on top of it. So you've answered correctly, and they'll ask another question. And every time after hearing this, I now go into interviews and I kind of start to catch it. I'm like, oh, okay. So we're heading that way now. You've asked like two, three layered questions, or they'll throw something in to make it harder. To give an example, I had a question where they were asking about my process for how I triage an issue. And I would let them know this is what I would do. Oh, well, what would happen if we did this or this was happening? Oh, well, this is what I would do. And it does feel like they were getting to a point where they wanted me to get somewhere. But I did eventually stop. I was like, honestly, I don't know what I would do past this point. So, again, the number one thing, remember their job is to find where you stop knowing. We're juniors, or at least this channel is really based for junior people because I haven't had a job. I'm trying to get into tech. So there will be places that we don't know or things that we don't know. The second thing was remember there is luck to this. You can prepare as much as possible and there's a lot of luck. Not only do you have to know and answer the questions to the interviewer's expectations, and compete with other people who are perfect. They're not perfect, but that get all the questions correct, right? So there is a competition aspect to it. The interview has to like you. Eventually, you'll have to meet the team, and they'll have to like you. So each interview you get, take it with a grain of salt and take it as a learning lesson, because really the idea for me and the way I'm looking at it at this point is it's just a numbers game. I have to get enough interviews, and as long as I am categorizing the way I'm applying correctly, I think, then eventually those questions and the information they're looking for will line up and I'll land it. So this goes into number two, and this is a little bit similar to what I just talked about with the second piece of advice with the luck, but this is just about setting the expectations. Really, unless you're lucky, I think it's going to be a denial game, and you're either going to be not even getting the interviews and getting denied from just applying, or you'll get through the process and get denied there. And I feel like it hurts so bad because in tech, some of these jobs are so cool that we would love to get them, right? The money's great, the job itself, what you'd be doing is great. So having that mental shift, knowing, okay, I'm going to try my best. I'm going to try to learn as much as I can from this experience, and also applying smartly so you make each experience and each interview worth it. You you can only know so much. And mostly if we're juniors, I would try to discover how and what your passion is. I feel like I'm interested in so much things that I'm kind of like, look, if you're willing to pay me and it's in tech, I'm down. But I'll kind of just mention it in the way I figured it out. First of all, I've been mostly into app development, and I felt like that was the most exciting thing for me. And I've kind of fallen into this front end area right now because of how much I've practiced making apps, making websites, that kind of stuff. For me right now, looking for a job, the most realistic thing for me to do is just grow that skill and do that. Like I know for a fact I can quickly learn JavaScript and React if I need to expand that, which is why I made the previous videos I made on this channel. I know if I wanted to expand on Swift and iOS, I could do that because I've spent so much time there. And that's what's come easiest and makes the most sense. So the test I did was what can you pick up and build the fastest? That doesn't mean a day or two. That doesn't mean with AI, but given a month, give yourself like a month. What language do you already know, or what language can you learn given 2 weeks, and then giving yourself the other 2 weeks to try to set up an app? Like, what can you build something? Because remember, we are builders with software that you find entertaining, that isn't grueling. For me, that was app development. So I've kind of put my expertise there, and I do most of my applying for there. So as I've applied more of these roles are asking me similar questions. That's basically set your expectations, but also apply correctly, mixed into two. Number three, don't wait. Don't wait till you feel ready. The biggest thing is to get interviews under your belt. Don't say, oh man, I need to study this thing. Start studying today if you're interested in that, and start applying right away too. So even if you get one, maybe that first interview will teach you all the holes you didn't have, and it will make your studying way better, and it'll prepare you for number two. So number three is easy. Don't wait till you feel ready. Just start applying. Okay, so this fourth one is a big one. There's good interviewers and bad interviewers. This list is going to seem obvious, but I think it's good to have it online and just something that you can hear. Good interviewers, I feel, really lead you. First of all, they give everyone a fair chance. And by giving everyone a fair chance, they're going to be trying to give you advice or ask you questions that help you complete the interview. Because again, when they work with you, it's not like they're going to be mean on the interview and then start working with you and be nice there. So it also informs you, not only are they good interviews, but is this someone that you're going to be able to learn and ask for help with, because you'll be working with them from day to day. Now, whenever I got interviewers, they usually introduce themselves too. They'll tell you how much tenure they have. So I have noticed, and this is kind of obvious, that the better interviewers have just been in tech and managers longer, usually 10 to 20 years range. I've had one that had 10 years, one in the 15-year range, and one that had been doing this for 20 years plus. So, of course, they're going to know how to lead the interview better. They're going to know how to ask the right questions. So that is really what a good interviewer will do. They'll make you feel comfortable. They will challenge you, but also try to push you forward and call it too. They just won't let you suffer in silence. Like if you don't know, they'll be like, you know what? Okay, let's move on. And they kind of push that interview forward. Bad interviewers, I think it's good to hear some stories about bad interviews. That's why I'm including this. But basically, it's they're usually just not interested, right? They're tired. We're all humans and they've had a long day. This is where that luck comes in. But the biggest point I want to make about bad interviewers is I do think that they can lead you in the wrong way or ask the wrong question. And this could happen for a good interviewer as well. So the biggest advice is, if you ever working on whatever the goal of the interview is it to answer an API question? Is it to answer a coding question? As our job as an interviewee is to make sure we complete that. And if they're trying to give us advice and maybe make it more efficient, or like this mostly goes for like efficiency or programming, I guess, don't get stuck on that. If an interviewer is giving you advice and it's making it harder for you to complete something and you think you can complete it, make sure you give it 2 to 3 minutes to try. You want to try their thing because you want to show people that you can learn or get advice and take it, right? But you also want to show them, hey, you know what? Let me stop this real quick. Let me complete the problem because I do think I can complete this. And then we could maybe go over what you were saying after the fact. So don't let a bad interviewer distract you from the end goal. Make sure you complete it. Now we're going to get more into like the actual interview processes. So because we're getting into that, the number one thing is to make sure to listen and answer the questions they're asking. I'm terrible at this myself. So I've heard from my manager and another manager I work with, they find that when they're interviewing, they ask questions, and it's very common not to get the answer for the question. And this is because you go on a long tangent, you try to answer, be concise, and answer the question. Try to take deep breaths. I know it's nerve-wracking. That's why I'm terrible. I get nervous and I start explaining, and sometimes they like what I'm saying, so I talk more. So be concise and answer the questions. Number 6 is make sure to show interest and ask questions. I find that for a lot of the interviews I've had, there's usually going to be a first one, either a phone call interview or like a 20-30 minute interview where they're just trying to get to know you. Usually, for me, this isn't always, but there's usually going to be a get to know you interview. Do you even want this job? And then they do the coding question on the second interview. The technical portion start after the second interview. So that first interview, you got to make sure that you show that interest. And I've always done that by asking a lot of questions, having questions ready about them, making sure I look through the application, and anything I don't understand, even having that as a question, even if it's technical. Hey, I see that your team does this. What does that even mean? I've never heard of that. And if you can, ask them about their day to day. Just showing that interest actually got me an internship with Apple. So one of the notes my managers got back once I got accepted to the internship was, hey, he seemed very interested in the role, and we loved that. So that was why we actually pushed him forward. So it goes a long way, and I've reached a lot of, I've gone past a lot of level 1 interviews, and I think that this is the main reason why, that asking questions and showing interest was a big reason. Okay, so we're going to get more into now coding and interview style stuff that I just wish I would have known. So first thing is we do have TwoSum here. We have Replit here. And I want to explain why. Most your coding interviews are going to be done through something like a CoderPad here. And the CoderPad is just basically an internet IDE that they will give you the question on. So the main reason I'm doing this is because if you practice only on LeetCode, right, you're not going to be used to writing your function signatures. You're not be used to writing your own test cases. Out of all the interviews I've had, they've always only given me one test case. So they are trying to check, do you think of these test cases, that kind of stuff, okay? So they will usually just paste the question here, kind of explain it, walk it through, and then show you one example, and then everything else is blank. But all my practice is done like this. I write out the function, I'll grab the problem, I'll grab the first test case, put them here, and then think through it, kind of walk through it, and talk the problem out loud as I'm going through it. I wouldn't know that if I didn't practice on here. Now, why I'm showing you, so 100% recommend to go on CoderPad and try it, even if you only do it once. First of all, it's going to let you know like syntax stuff. So one thing, so for I in nums.enum. So you see this recommendation it's giving me right here. So it tells you function signatures, but it won't write things out for you, right? It doesn't have predictive text. So make sure you can create an environment that's as close to this as possible, okay? And I'm making sure that you understand that because CoderPad does cost money, and it's 100% not worth buying even if you're in the interview state. It's very expensive. It's meant mostly for companies, but you can definitely use it for free. What I'm going to recommend you guys use is Replit. So let me just go ahead and show you how to make one real quick because it is not as self-explanatory as I would think. You got to make an account. It's going to bring you here. You got to go to Developer Frameworks, and then click here, and you'll have to pick your language of choice and click Use Framework. Create a framework here, and it's going to bring you to your coding environment. And then you got to click on this top right side so you can get to the main file and start typing. Then you will have to go to the console and run it here. If you do run it, you can clear it and get back to that button, or you can press play here. Lastly, The last thing is if you create a new tab, that's how you can get to all the settings and add stuff. But the main reason I'm showing this is you could go to user settings, and Replit does come automatically with code completion. So make sure you turn that off so you can get to something as close to this as possible. This changes the game. Once you're practicing the way you're going to get interviewed in real life, it just makes it better. So LeetCode is so important, but practicing in the way that you're going to actually asked is much more important. Now, let's get into the types of questions because we are right now on TwoSum. So, for the most part, I've been asked easy questions on all my coding prompts so far. I do feel like if I would have solved them extremely quickly, that I would have been asked, they most likely had other questions ready to go. But I've usually gotten 45 minutes to an hour to solve a problem. They will usually have like they level up. So I've solved a number of my problems and then I had a secondary version of it asked every time. But overall, it's always been an easy problem on LeetCode. I'm not saying like an easy problem, I'm saying like a tagged easy. As we know, there is some very complicated easies on LeetCode as well that very little people have solved in like the 30 percentile right before they become mediums. So it's really good to be practicing LeetCode and practicing it like I mentioned on Replit or on CoderPad. Second thing is, for the most part, I also find that they've usually been array or string problems. They have given me an integer, which threw me off. So like, let's go to here, where it was like problem, and then it was an int, like it was just a number, and you can't iterate over numbers. So I was like, how do I do that, right? I'm not a big Python person. It would be like that. So that is the other thing. So just to have an idea of what usually they're going to be doing, I would still include linked list in that. I think that would probably be a level one. I would accept a linked list question. I would also assume in like CoderPad or Replit they would provide you with at least a class that makes it. But I would be prepared for that, or that would be a good levels 2 question where they're like, hey, can you design a linked list or a node class, and then create a problem that merges 2 lists. Again, in that easy realm of linked list questions. So those are the type of prompts I've gotten. Again, not too bad, but usually there'll be a second thing where they'll challenge your efficiency. They also do ask about time complexity, so make sure you have time complexity down. The way I do it is I'll solve it, and once I know it's passing, I'll ask ChatGPT hey, this is my problem. I'm giving it this time complexity because of this, that, and the other, and it'll let you know usually if it's correct. And that's how I practice it. Now, number 9 is if you're not in an interview specifically for coding and they ask you a coding question, try to walk through it with them. Mostly they give you that choice, code it, talk to me about it. If they ask, just have that conversation because you'll get much further. And I think if you get to a point where they do want to see how much you can code, they will tell you. Again, that is just my thought. Do what you feel best in the moment. All right, and now we're at number 10. So I did kind of sort this in what was most important. Remember to go over your stories. Make sure you have an elevator pitch for yourself that describes you, your like why you're interested, that you went to school, that you got this. If you didn't go to school, what stands out about you? Make sure you have like a minute or two story that really drives home, this is why I'm interested, and this is who I am, and this is what I know, and this is how I know it, right? ChatGPT and come up with ideas on what kind of questions they can ask in terms of like what I've had. So I've gotten asked, what is a problem you've gotten stuck in code that you just couldn't figure out, and what was the process to solve it? How did you eventually solve it? So making sure you have a good story for a good coding issue or something that you dealt with, and then how you overcame it. Another one that threw me off because I haven't worked, unfortunately, other than school, and it was only once or twice where I did a school project with people, and it was like, tell me a time where you worked with someone and you guys ran into issues, or you ran into an issue, and how did you solve it? They asked questions like, tell me a disagreement you've had with a coworker. I just didn't have these things. And then how did you solve it? Sorry. So these are kind of the basic questions, right? We can forget this in this process because most coding interviews are like, they're usually going to be 4 or 5 interviews deep. So make sure you have that in your repertoire for preparation because it will come up. So that is it. That is my top 10 things I wish I would have known or could have seen before I did interviews. So I hope they help. I will be doing other videos on my interview processes and all that kind of stuff and things I'm doing to progress. So thanks for watching. Have a good one.